back to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse, and in studio today, Erik Oliver. You might have seen Erik on a previous episode that we did with him related to cost segregation studies, and we wanted to bring Erik back on to talk about a deal that changed his life. It's a segment that we've been running recently, and we've got a lot of interest from this. It's definitely a hot topic when you hear stories, good and bad, about deals that change your life. Something that changed your life might not always be a good thing. In this case, though, hopefully the story that Erik's going to share with us today will be. Erik, how are you? Good to see you again. And yeah, let's dive into a deal that really changed your life.
All right, perfect. Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you guys again. Well, I don't know that it's changed my life just yet, but I'll give you a story. I hope that it changes my life. So it's still in progress. So we'll see how everything shapes up. Essentially, at the end of 2022, so I'm a W-2 employee. I work for a company called Cost Segregation Authority. I'm married. My wife, she's in the school system, so she's a W-2 employee for the local school district here. And at the end of 2022, we had a high W-2 income year. And so I was faced with about a $60,000 tax liability at the end of 2022. Instead of paying that tax to the IRS, I decided to go out and buy a short-term rental. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with the short-term rental loophole. If you're not, there's tons of information out there. But basically the idea is I have some long-term rentals already. Had I done a cost seg study on those long-term rentals, I could have created a large deduction. However, I couldn't have used that deduction to offset my W-2 income. So I could only use that deduction to offset any rental income or any other passive income I had. So because of that, I chose to go buy a short-term rental. So we were strategic about when we bought it. We bought it at the end of the year. It was actually in November. Because the idea behind owning a short-term rental is oftentimes, depending on how they're set up, you can use those deductions to offset active W-2 income. So there's a couple rules and regulations you have to follow. The first thing is that the average stay has to be less than 7 days, which typically on most Airbnb, VRBO type properties, your average stay is going to be less than 7 days. So that wasn't a problem. The harder thing is being able to show what they call material participation. So the IRS has 7 tests. You only have to meet one of those 7 tests to show material participation. So the test that my wife and I met is we had to spend 100 hours at the property, at least 100 hours, and more time than anybody else managing that property. And so because we bought it in November, we spent a lot of time setting the place up, getting it ready. Our cleaners, we only had a few renters by the end of the year. So our cleaner was only there a few hours. Our maintenance folks were only there a few hours. We self-manage the property ourselves. It's just a couple hours away from where we are here in Salt Lake. And so because we could show material participation, we were able to use the deductions from that property to offset our W-2 income. So I think the property was like $420,000. We put $80,000 down on the property, but we did a cost seg study, and that cost seg study generated about $140,000 deduction. So you take that $140,000 deduction, you times that by a 37% tax bracket, and we were able to save $50,000 to $60,000 in taxes. Meaning, the way I looked at it is, and the property where we bought the property, it's kind of a lake town. There's a lake up there. It's a little bit oversaturated. It's going to pay for itself. It might cash flow a little bit, but I'm in it for the long-term appreciation, and I'm in it for the tax play. So as long as it's not costing me money, I saved $60,000 of my taxes. So, again, I was going to have to pay $80,000 to the government. Instead, I paid $80,000 down on a property, got $60,000 of that back in the form of tax savings. And now I have a revenue generating property that hopefully does change my life and will appreciate over time. I don't know that this property is going to change my life, but it may be a factor in changing my life over time as it appreciates, number one. And number two, like I said, I created a huge tax savings that I otherwise would have just paid into the IRS, and I would have never seen that money again. So,
question for you: What again? What was the purchase price again?
420.
420, and how did you put work into it as well? Like,
No, this was new construction. So these were
was it?
townhomes, brand new townhomes. So I'm hoping the maintenance is going to be low. We were a little bit strategic. We wanted something that was going to be maintenance free. Because again, I don't plan on holding the property forever. And so I wanted something with low maintenance. So, I'm going to hold it 5 to 10 years and then I'll sell it and hopefully it'll appreciate over time. And like I said, the big thing for me was that tax savings.
When you did the cost seg study, what was the land value?
The land value, if I'm not mistaken, was it 60,000? I believe
Okay,
it was either 40 or 60,000.
okay, got it. So the
Yeah.
majority of it, the majority of it was, you were, you could potentially bucket into something to
Yeah.
depreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, because I do cost segregation for a living, I was a little aggressive on my cost seg study, but not super aggressive. Created $140,000 tax savings or 140,000, excuse me, $140,000 deduction. Let me make clear on that. It's a deduction, which created about a $60,000 tax savings.
That is beautiful. And I presume that on short-term rentals, that applies to all active income, not just W-2 income. So in Jason's case, where he's a hard money lender, that same type of income, correct?
Yep, exactly.
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. And again, that's
I could see his wheels spinning above me, and I was like, "Oh, he's deep, dude."
Well, think about it this way, because it's kind of like the way it's being looked at is it's kind of like I own and operate a hotel business, and because I'm actively participating in that hotel, it doesn't get treated like a regular residential rental, like a long-term rental. It's not treated like rental real estate. It's more treated like I have this business, this Airbnb business. I manage it. I'm actively involved in it. Therefore, those deductions become active and they can now be used to offset any active income. So we see in our industry, we see a lot of high W-2 earners, doctors, lawyers, professionals who have high W-2. Maybe they're making good money at the hospital, so their spouse stays home. The spouse manages all their vacation homes, and now they can use these deductions on their vacation homes to offset their high doctor income. So we see that quite often.
Yeah, I actually did not know that about Airbnbs, and it makes sense. And is that something that's been around from the beginning?
Do you know? I don't know the question. I know it's become more and more popular over the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's probably been around. I think somebody probably just found it in the tax code. Again, as Ian always likes to talk about, the tax code is very complex. It's a mess. And so there's all these hidden gems in there. But if you treat it, and I think part of it, there might have been some legislation as Airbnbs became more popular. There might have been some legislation that allowed people to do this. But yeah, it's become more and more popular in the last couple of years.
Well, one other question related to that. What's a range? What is a cost segregation study cost? What would it be? Just a range, approximately, for like a property exactly like that.
So, that's a great question. So for our company, I can give you our ranges. You're probably 3,200 to 3,500 for a single family rental like that.
Yep.
Keep in mind, there's different methodologies within cost segregation. There's software out there that does these studies for maybe $1,500. It's kind of like the TurboTax of our industry. It's good if you've got assets that are less than probably $200,000. Anything over that, those software studies, they usually garner very conservative results because they're just using a modeling methodology. They're not actually going in and looking at how much carpet's in the building. They're just taking some averages, and those averages are very conservative just so that they can stay under the radar from the IRS so they don't get audited. And so I found that anything over $200,000, it's worth paying for a study because, you might pay a little bit more for an engineering-based study, but your tax savings is going to be tenfold that. So you might, if you do a software study, you might save $2,000 up front, but you're losing $10,000 in tax savings. So you're losing $8,000 in my eyes. So, but yeah, our studies range anywhere from, on single family rentals, you're $3,000-$4,000 at the most.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very small fee to create that $60,000 tax savings and the $140,000 tax credit or deduction, however you said it.
You got it.
And I mean, it's a very small fee for that. And it's very impressive. And it's a very powerful tool if applied correctly. And guys, if you're an Airbnb operator and you're looking for capital, well, there you go. There's the answer. Literally take this episode, go show your capital investors and let them know that they will get the benefit of this. One thing we didn't cover in the show a couple weeks ago was this passes through to all K1 investors or all LPs, anybody that's a part of the entity, if you allocate it in that sense. That easy way to raise capital. Actually, I'm messaging my accountant right now. We did a K1 deal where we assigned additional depreciation to a capital investor that needed it in exchange for a higher loan amount. So, dude, that is so powerful and a great case study to really sum up how cost segs can be beneficial to not only active real estate investors, but W-2 employees or active income earners as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great way to build wealth. Like I said, I got to come out of pocket this 80 grand either way. I give it to the IRS or do I buy a property? And so the idea is to just buy a property every year, offset your tax liability, and over time you're just creating wealth and long-term wealth versus giving it to the government, letting them do what they want with it. So
love it. Eric, if people want to reach out to you, pick your brain about this, because I have a feeling people will be reaching out about it, or they want to learn about what your company does, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, the best place is just at our website. It's www.costsegalauthority.com. My contact information is on there, as well as if you have a property that you want us to look at, we're happy to run a free benefit analysis, give you an idea of expected tax savings, as well as what the fee would be. And so, again, you can contact us through that website. That's probably the best way, easiest way to get a hold of us.
Man, I'm so glad that you came back on. 2 banger episodes. Might have to have you on for a third, because I feel like we could talk about taxes for days. Appreciate you guys. You get any value out of this, please feel free to share it. It's the best compliment you can give us. You don't even need to give us a 5-star review. Just share it. That's the best compliment we can get, because that means you enjoyed it. Catch y'all on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.